This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Care Notes with Doug Wilbur. And Doug, I think you have an interesting conversation today because many of us, at least I used to believe, that veterans were just the luckiest people in the whole world. They had all these wonderful benefits, but strangely, they don't always know about all the benefits that they have.
Oh, yeah. I actually just was at a meeting and I heard the statistics of the percentage of people that know that they have benefits that they can use. And it's extremely low. And there's usually kind of a couple reasons for the whole benefit thing. The first issue is really around there's a hesitation among veterans to utilize benefits. You have some people and they're like, throw it at me,
Exactly.
And then there's kind of almost a modesty among some veterans, like, I don't deserve the benefits. I really, sometimes I didn't do that much, or might be one end of things, or just kind of like, I survived.
Right.
Sometimes with war things, why should I, get things? But here's the reality is, you know, anyone who put on the uniform took on risk, and that risk was significant, and because of that, we as a nation have said we want to acknowledge the risk that you took, and so and provide with benefits. So the benefits are out there, and they are underutilized in many cases. And if it can help pay to keep someone in a home setting, I say, go for it.
Absolutely.
And it's well deserved. You wore the uniform, and so many others did not. And it's not that the people who didn't wear a uniform are lesser, in those circumstances, but they but those who did wear the uniform, should take the benefits that are available, and understand that this is going to help them,
Okay.
in those circumstances. And frankly, people gave up, at a minimum, generally 2 years of their life,
Right.
and more likely than not, even more time than that. And so, and they weren't paid a fortune, for their service. And so, yeah, I hope people do know that it is a grateful nation that is trying to pay back that time that was done and served. So,
Absolutely.
there's a couple, things that people need to be aware of. Number one, just the health benefits. If someone has served in uniform, and qualifies, they oftentimes they can get hospitalizations paid for, they can get their medicines paid for, and a lot of times even very expensive medicines, and I have a friend that I was recently talking to, and he told me, he said, I eventually, the veterans benefits are so good, and especially in the Cleveland area, he said, I've given up my Social Security, not Social Security, my Medicare benefits. And I was surprised. I'd never heard anyone say that
Interesting.
they'd done that. And he said, yeah, I'm just, everything I need, I can get through the veterans. And this isn't advice of someone to do or not, but it is at least, saying that he's finding that the veterans benefit are for him are that comprehensive that he was willing to do that, and forego, that whole host of benefits, and
But you
so
don't have, he doesn't have to give up Medicare to keep the veterans benefits, does he?
no, he
So he could
doesn't.
have had both.
Yeah, he could have had both, but I think he's finding them they're so good. So whatever
Sure,
amount that he would be paying for the Medicare, he feels like in his case it was worthwhile.
sure.
Again, this is not advice that someone do that. That was just
Something that
his
he could
own
do.
experience.
Sure.
And again, the even things like hearing aids. Every once in a while, I'll say, "Do you realize you can have your hearing aids paid through the veterans, or likely you can get that?" And people sometimes are surprised that's a possibility, because hearing aids, even if you want to keep all the other things, hearing aids is a very expensive thing
Right.
at times. And so that's thousands of dollars of value in those circumstances. So that they can get paid for and not have to come out of their own pocket.
Sure.
Um, so so again, it's more of an awareness. Look and find out what benefits that you as a veteran would qualify for. And an educated family or an educated person may find that there are some things. Medicines are a perfect example. In my friend's case, he said, "Yeah, all my medicines are essentially taken care of."
Wow.
Yeah. So and but there's also, like, for things that we do, there are a couple programs again that are underutilized. If someone is using care already, they may qualify for something called the aid and attendance program. Now, the aid and attendance program is a program that is, in essence, a pension. And the person that qualifies for this is not only the veteran, but even potentially a widow of a veteran. And it's a substantial amount of money. It's getting close to $2,000 for a veteran. I think it's maybe 17 or $1,800, and that will go so that someone can pay per care. And what they do is they take the cost of care and they take that off of the the cost of care someone's getting. They take it off of the cost, or the income someone is receiving, and then they have a calculation like how much assets someone has. And if someone qualifies, they may pay up to that amount that I had said. I think it's around 17 or $1,800 a month. And a widow, I think, is upwards of $1,300 a month. Again, don't quote me on this. I'm no expert on it, but I mean, that's a lot of money
Sure.
that can help keep someone in a home setting, and it's following a similar pattern. And I have found that people, by utilizing that, have been able to stay at home. I remember one couple that we took care of, and because of that, that was enough, just enough money, that with whatever they had in assets, and um, that um, that they were able to stay at home and get their care fully paid for. And I mean, paid for, or
Sure.
they had enough where they could finance it themselves. And you know, it was wonderful. I mean, I think I've told this story before, but this was someone who they had built their own home with their own hands, and so their home really meant a lot to them.
Sure.
And so both husband and wife stayed home their whole life. And then there's another program, and it's called I think it's called the Community Care Program. And that program is one where they essentially, the VA is contracting with us directly, and we're one of the many companies nationally that are part of this program. And so people can ask for cherished companions
Sure.
if they are going in there. But you know, they'll pay for, you know, all sorts of hours for individuals. So right now, we have someone that we're caring for, and I think they're qualifying for 35 hours a week, and it's based on what, you know, the social workers, or you know, you know, will say that they're
Sure.
qualified for. Typically, they'll qualify for a year at a time, and they'll, or get approved for a year at a time, and then we'll go in and we can fulfill those hours. So, so what that does is, again, it's a means of being able to pay for care that someone's wanting and needing. Um, and I think that's great, you know, in this,
Absolutely.
you know, under these circumstances, to be able to again stay at home. 35 hours in the case that I just mentioned is a lot of hours. And so that and you know what is happening in this particular case is they're doing some of the hours to the um, through the VA,
Sure.
and then they're doing other hours where they're paying for us privately, and that again makes care in general a lot more affordable,
Wonderful.
even if you need more than those hours.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you know, and then we try to work with it so in a way that makes sense, and that where we can hopefully um, provide, you know, the care that someone needs. And this is one of those means of being able to afford it. And typically, if someone's qualifying, you know, they're needing it. So,
Right.
again, going back to that original thing that I said, which is don't hesitate, because, you know, if you qualify, you're needing this care at this point in time. And we love helping our vets. You know, we believe very strongly that the vets are well deserving of this,
Sure.
and we love to help, and we love to jump in and do this. And you know, again, one of the pieces of it, if they want to use us, ask for us, you know, as being the ones that are involved,
Sure.
you know. um
Well, you know, you're bringing up a great point that most of us don't even know what kind of benefits we have, whether it be private insurance, Medicare, um, you know, veterans benefits, or something that maybe we even earned at a previous job that's still sitting there waiting for us. Um,
yeah.
this organization I belong to online through ARP, I cannot tell you how many people are saying, you know, I can't afford my medicine. And then you find out that they haven't taken out, you know, the Medicare for medication, or they haven't gotten the complete plan that includes it. And in conversation, people are saying, well, you know, what kind of insurance do you have? And I've heard there are a lot of female veterans out there who have no idea that they have any kind of benefits. They think the benefits all went to the men.
Oh, it's weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
yeah, and it's just kind of that strange thinking sometimes people have. Um, yeah, I mean, over the years, the VA is, um, has in many cases gotten a bad rap. Um, and I will say um, that something shifted within the last 8 years, and it started under the last administration, but we saw a big shift, and it seems now that the VA is much more responsive, that people are getting better care, they're more apt to you know try to do things in a way that are helping the vets, and so whatever occurred, there was definitely a switch, and now we're seeing, again, a much greater responsiveness. So I don't know if there were more funds that went to it, or it's just the way that it's being administered, or whatever. But what I can say is this is they should people should jump on this, because it is definitely an opportunity to get care, and and make your dollars spread out for a longer period of time,
Absolutely.
and ultimately that's the goal, is to be at home, for and figure out a way to pay for the being at home. That said, I know the veterans even have their own facilities that people can go to, and so there are even long-term care facilities that veteran can go to and get paid for if they need that level of care. Um, One of the things that the idea, and there's been a push to get legislation in, so that that um, people hopefully will have the same benefits or same payments for a home setting as for a facility setting, available, um, so that people don't have to go into a facility to get things paid for.
Right.
That they'll try to equal or pay for the same thing, in a home setting. And and to me, that makes all the sense in the world. As a matter of fact, I think in the end we'll save money by doing that. But but either way, you're going to have better care if you're at home.
Absolutely.
You
I
know,
know, I know there's a trend going on, and I've been reading a lot about it, where seniors now are sort of like combining their resources and moving in together. So especially if you're a widow or a widower, and if you don't have family around, it seems to be because you're in a home setting, it may not be yours, but it becomes yours. And now you have this family around you. And I think that is proving to, at least to me, that we don't want to go into facilities. It might be okay to have some roommates, but
right.
we want to feel like this is our home and not a facility, not a hospital. And I think that's important, that for those of us who haven't been able to save up the money, to be thinking about how can you do that? You know,
Yeah.
what is your game plan?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to someone, and they had um, kind of an interesting plan. What their idea was, and it was a company like ours, but in a different part of the country. There were some investors who were um, trying to get, like, where you have a small home, and that where they are, um, have a handful of people there. So they have their own privacy room, other things,
Right.
but then they have a place where they can all eat together. and but it's very small. It's not like a large
Sure.
situation. And then if someone needs extra care, they just contract with a um, a company like ours to do it. I've also seen people do that on a smaller scale where they're just kind of personally do it. So they have, you know, there's someone that, has a place. And then I've even seen where someone that was like an in-law
Yeah,
uh, moved in. So now you have two people that are in the same setting. And maybe, the first person owns the home, second person is paying a small fee for
sure.
that.
Exactly. Yeah,
It helps both of them in those circumstances. And then we get pulled in as sort of the third resource, which is where we're coming in and maybe we're doing meals and we're helping with showers and we're helping things. And we can help both folks there.
sure.
And, there might be a slight upcharge with that for because we have two people instead of one. But it's not like it's doubling the price. It's just
Exactly.
yeah, we're just, eh, doing a slight more because it's, an added work. And then, then you end up having sort of the best of both worlds, and stuff. So yeah, to your point, I think it's a phenomenal idea.
Well,
I
we used
think,
to tease
go ahead.
my mother and my mother-in-law got along very, very well. And my mother-in-law one time said to my mother, Dorothy, just move here, move in with me. I won't bother you.
Right. Yeah.
And my mother said, I would love that, but I still have family and friends in Detroit. And so it was like, well, why don't you move with me? Um, and up until, my mother-in-law passed away, that was the conversation going back and forth. Um, so, it is a doable thing, especially if you get along with each other and maybe you're not in different states. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's also funny because a lot of times people think, how am I going to pay for care? And maybe we'll broaden this out just a little bit, just to talk about affordability factor.
sure.
One of the things people could always consider doing is the part of uh, some people want to be in their home, and there are creative ways to kind of think through things. But but as also it may not be their home in particular. That may be ideal, but sometimes people's homes aren't just set up
Right.
perfectly. So, another way of doing it might be that you sell your home, you get a two-bedroom apartment, it's all easily accessible, um, and then um, and then you have a caregiver come in there. And I would always recommend a two-bedroom, not one, because then you could even have a living caregiver in those circumstances.
Sure.
Wouldn't have to move, and you would have the setting where you would have a person be able to be there. And I think, in those situations, then you free up all that cash by selling the house. Now is a great time to sell a house in one respect, and that is values have gone
Yeah.
up.
Yep.
So you you know something that might have had someone be able to pay for care for 3 years or 5 years, a lot of care, you know, um, uh, might have gone for 5 years. Now maybe it can go for 7 or 8 years, or
Sure.
nine even, depending on the location where someone's at. Values have gone up that significantly. Unfortunately, my taxes have indicated that because they did reassessments, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, you know, And
I think we're all going through that right now, especially this
yeah,
time of year. But those are great suggestions. And that was my mother-in-law had a home. So when she got ill and needed help, we sold her home, and that certainly helped, although she did have long-term care insurance as well. So she was
yeah,
in pretty good shape. My mother lived in an apartment, okay? And so when we moved her into independent care, the price just went up. Here
oh
she's
yeah,
paying, $1,000 a month for a two-bedroom apartment, which was huge, and now she's going to be paying almost 2,000 a month. But my brothers and I looked at it and said, she will be safer, she'll live longer. It's still going to be her place, okay? And if she doesn't want to go down for a meal, she doesn't have to. She just has to let them know. And
right,
that was the best thing for her. And then when she did need more care, it was comfortable because they were coming into her place just the same way that you do. And I think
right.
it's important for people.
Yeah, and by the way, the numbers you used, if I don't know if they were based on reality, but that's not the reality of what people are paying
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Well,
Those are those are uninflated
well,
dollars.
those were many years ago. So
Right.
yeah. And this when she first moved in there.
Yeah. Yeah, if
But
someone thinks they're going to get a deal like that, um, they're going to be kind of in sticker shock,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it
or
was
they're going to
funny.
want to move to Detroit.
Yeah. Before my mother got sick, I'll never forget. She called me up one day and she said, I can't afford to stay here. And I said, yes, you can. And she said, no, I really can't. Now, a portion of our family owns this facility. So,
Okay.
yeah, she could, but she had no idea that that was part of her health. But the truth is, if they didn't,
Mhm.
she was going to have to move in with one of us and she would have come kicking and screaming. So,
Right. Yeah.
those are things that we really have to think about because now that I think back, she could have stayed in her place. We could have had somebody in there because she was still very, very capable.
Right.
So, I
Yeah.
think it's good to talk to someone like you, somebody who can come in and look around and advise and make some recommendations.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the first stopping points, one of the first things I do ask for, people is, was, you know, are you a veteran? What did you have a spouse that was a veteran? And then, I can't do a whole lot as from that point on, other than to say, that here are a couple of the options
Sure.
that many veterans have, and it's worth looking into just to see whether you might be one of the fortunate ones that would qualify, for these type of things. Um, so anyway, that some food for thought, and
Absolutely.
hopefully someone will watch this and say, "Oh, I didn't know," and hopefully get some benefit from that. If not, at least they get the benefit of thinking creatively because it's typically, in creative thinking that we come up with solutions that, hopefully are best for the ones that we love. So
Well,
thank
in the
you.
show notes, we'll put in some information about how to contact your Veterans Association in case you have no idea. I'm sure you could Google it, but we'll make it a little easier. So
That's good. Thanks.
have a great day. Bye bye
You too.
now.
Take care. Bye bye.